So pick your cause, pick your fight, be supportive, run your play, live your life the way you want to.
Welcome to the Legacy Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Beauparlant, here to guide you through the journey of selling your business and building a personal brand that leaves a lasting impact. On the show, we'll explore real-life founder stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you navigate the transition, avoid post-sale crisis, and create your impact-driven legacy brand. Whether you're thinking of selling, building to sell, or already on the other side, this podcast is your go-to resource for making your next evolution your best one yet. Let's dive in. Today on the Legacy Branding Podcast, I'm joined by Joe Mechlinski. He's a New York Times bestselling author, award-winning entrepreneur, and the brilliant mind behind multiple businesses, including Shift and Latch. Joe's journey from the inner city of Baltimore to the helm of high-impact ventures is nothing short of extraordinary. His latest book, Who Says, challenges the status quo and celebrates the power of questioning everything. Joe's on a mission to change the way we work so we can transform the way we live. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here, Laura.
Okay, I feel like I was diving into your book and reading about you online. And I know we've met multiple times, but it was really amazing to deep dive into this book and to really feel like I got to know you a lot better. And I have a lot of questions, and I'm going to lead with the first one, which is in your book, Who Says, you share that adults only ask about 6 questions a day compared to kids who ask 125. And I was like, wow, that is a staggering difference. And I wondered, when do you think or know that we stop being curious? And how do you think we can start asking better questions or more questions?
Well, I will tell you that that study has been done multiple times. There's multiple variations of it, but the variance is still pretty wide. There's another bit that I put in the book that was from a guy who worked alongside of NASA right after Apollo 13, when everyone knows the famous scene in the movie, failure is not an option. We've got to get these boys home. And right after that moment, apparently at NASA, they developed an assessment test to figure out who were the most creative, genius, super engineers that they were going to hire moving forward. And so they developed this test and they decided to take it all the way back to school. And so they tested kids who were 5, they tested kids who were 10, they tested kids who were like 15, and then of course adults. And so here's the quick headline. At 5 years old, 98% of us tested at a creative genius level.
Right. Yeah.
Where,
Wild.
and again, I might get this a hair wrong, where as adults, it's at like 2 or 3%. And it basically progresses, and you could draw a bunch of different theories. I think, look, there's nothing wrong with learning things. And as we learn things, we develop a pattern in our brain, a pattern of how we see reality and we see the world. It's like a shortcut. And that's a good thing. We want to actually learn things and accumulate wisdom and knowledge. And at the same time, right, there's not one way to do things. And I think in this sort of like mass production world we've lived in for the last year or so, efficiency, productivity, profit, the incentive structures, the conditioning of behavior, the conditioning of us from the schools. Remember, the schools were a feeder to the factory.
Yep.
As I've worked in the workplace now for 25 years, this is really one big game of power, right? Nobody wants to lose their seat in line. No one wants to give up what they've sacrificed for. And so I liken it to parenting. Most parents will say, my kids have it better than I did. But is that really only the goal? Like just a little better? Or like, should it be extraordinarily better? Should it be not a scale that's one dimensional? And so I think like all the way back to kind of success can be our own worst enemy of thinking we know things. And I have a tendency just to be a simple guy that thinks that we don't know much. And I think we're a little over our skis, if not most of the day, of walking around thinking that we know things when I just don't think we know a lot.
I think there's going back to this idea of learning. And I've noticed this even with my kids, like learning is a bad thing. It's like there's some mental shift that has happened that learning in school and gaining knowledge is not something fun or interesting. And I think the opposite. I'm always wanting to learn and grow and deep dive into topics. Sometimes they'll come to the table and they'll say something as fact. And I was like, Have you fact checked that? Have you questioned whether or not this is true? And then we can have some really interesting dialogues around the table. But this idea that even the live for the weekend, that Mondays suck, that learning is bad, these are sort of stories that seem to be coming up that means the work is bad and learning is bad. And I think shifting that narrative would be a great thing. And I think starting with questioning things and that curiosity really is key.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of my mentors, and I'm name dropping just to be clear, he's been a friend of mine. He is the founder of TED. His name is Richard Saul-Wurman. He's 90 years old. He's written 91 books. He will tell me, I just was with him recently, and his famous, I think, most important quote is learning is remembering what you're interested in. We did in school, we memorized facts, figures, stats, stories, and not necessarily what we were interested in. And so you and I can tell our kindred spirits, and like, I love to learn. I am like, it is my first favorite thing to do, which is a really cool privilege to have, that I get a chance to jump into things that interest me. And in school, we didn't like learn that way. We learned again through memorizing these facts, these stats, these figures. And so we know adult learning is kind of comprised of a few things. One is choice. Like, again, what am I interested in? Follow your interest. Number two, it's got to be relevant, right? So finding a connection point or an association is incredibly important. And the third is to do things, like learn by doing, like first-hand experience, primary data, like go into it yourself so that you have your own subjective experience, not delegating that understanding to AI or delegating that understanding to a book only, right? You've got to be the one kind of experiencing it, I think, to fully understand it or to fully embody it. And so that's not the way school is set up. The way work is set up, back to like why we live for the weekends, is that we live for the choice to do what we want to do. We get the Sunday scaries or the Monday blues because we are confined to a compliant, I have to work, versus I get to work or I want to work.
Yeah.
So all the math, all the research will keep coming back to tell you that the highest and healthiest of environments from a work standpoint, the highest of productivity or output type of environments, are the ones where there's a high degree of trust and they treat their people like adults and they have choice.
I love that. And I think this idea, as you said, we were talking about like the live for the weekend, and this idea of choice is so fascinating. And what is it that you're really interested in? We've had these conversations with our kids around use ChatGPT to like deep dive into a topic that you're interested in. Like go for a walk and have a conversation and like, I want to know about this thing. My oldest son is interested in airplanes, anything to do with airplanes, like history, all of that. He could literally learn everything there is to know about flying related topics just by being curious. And I see that. And I'm trying to teach them about these tools that they can use. Like, hey, you could use this as your tutor. It doesn't replace your critical thinking, but get curious. There's no wrong way to approach this. Just be curious. Absolutely. I love that. And I think this really is about challenging the status quo. And you talk about that in your book as well, that you are, and this idea of learned helplessness. I think I heard you talk about that in a talk you gave last year. And it is such a fascinating topic because we often project onto, as you said, they, who these proverbial theys are. We don't know who made these rules. School, our parents, our grandparents, whatever that is, society. Can you explain a little bit more about how you see this learned helplessness happening and how we can start to maybe identify it? And how does that show up in leaders and entrepreneurs?
Well, I think we all probably have a semblance of a memory around a story about a baby elephant that had a rope tied at a circus somewhere. And, the baby elephant couldn't move around. It tried to move around, but the rope was too strong. And then when that baby elephant became an adult elephant, they still hold the elephant on a rope. When we all know that once an elephant gets big, that elephant could clearly break that rope at any point in time. And so this fable, if you will, I think is one of the things that reminds me that, again, this helplessness or this authority bias, which is like we all kind of look up. We're looking, as adults, we're looking for the sage on the stage. We're looking for the guru or the wisdom that we think we don't have. Now, we don't have a lot of time to hit this today, but I think some of this is that we don't trust ourselves. Like we're using written verbal language to try to make sense of the world with our inner monologue, but not trusting that I am standing on the shoulders of hundreds of ancestors that helped me be here. And I have all of their wisdom. This is not woo. Like I have all of their DNA sitting in my body. And how am I interpreting this information? And so we've all heard of the Stockholm syndrome. It's like when your hostage takes you over. And again, I'm not making light of the situation, but that you sort of befriend, you become like allied with the people who captured you, because again, like we are just monkeys at the end of the day. We just made it out of the trees here. We're just figuring things out. And that helplessness, I think there's some safety in it. There's some comfort in it. Like, please take care of me. Like we all want to be held a little tighter and loved a little bit more from our parents and our friends and our family. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. We should embrace that. And we should realize that we live in a world where there is a little dog eat dog world, and it's competitive and it's not fair all the time. And there's some beauty in capitalism and the drive and the ambition that this, like if you look at the long arc, I mean, we've doubled the lifespan. We've decreased poverty by like 90 some percent. The world is reading more. There are women's rights. Democracy is spread more than ever before. And we still have problems and there's still gaps and all the things. But for a second, the last 45 years, there's been more change that's happened than in all of the other generations combined. So if we feel like the world is uncertain, and I know that's a charged statement based on where you might sit politically, but I would offer you that every generation gets to this point. In the 20s, they thought the world was ending and that and there were big things, yes, that we overcame, that we accomplished, that we had to go through the dark soul of the night. And that's okay. Back to your point of like where learning is scary, it means that you have to let go of something old to accept something new. And I said this in the book, we're finite beings in an infinite world. And that's the tension. We're impermanent. There's not enough time. I'll be gone someday. We all die. We're all walking each other home. Thank you, Ram Dass. And that's a lot to think about. That's a lot.
Yep.
And so these things have not been wired for the whole thing just yet. And so I think like in a lot of ways, the pushing back on narratives, just to remind ourselves, like I came from an environment where there wasn't enough food and it was the inner city. And to the point that you made, like I've been so fortunate. I have a lottery ticket of lottery tickets of blessings that I've gotten to the top of interesting power structures, whether it's government agencies or government politicians or billion-dollar companies and CEOs that I've worked with. What I see is what my dad told me is that they put their pants on just like you and I do every day, that they're making it up too as they go along. They have no idea what they're doing either. And so this
Yep.
faux authority that is on everything that we see all day long, internet, phones, etc. I think it's this like persistent reminder that we're not enough. It's this persistent reminder that we need someone else. And I just think after like I've been giving advice to companies for 25 years on how to think about things differently. And I say the same thing every time I walk into those companies. I don't know more about your company and what's best for you than you do. I don't. And they're like, so what are we doing with you here? I'm like, well, it's a good question. I don't know yet. Like I don't have, even though I've worked with 600 plus companies, I still don't have the hubris. Look, I'm overconfident in a lot of areas. I'm not saying I don't have my moments, but I also have reverence for people's journeys and the progress that they've already made and the genius that sits before me. And really what we're trying to do here is just try to get you unstuck, try to get rid of the bottlenecks, try to get rid of the tangles and figure out whether, you are mathing where you want to go. Like, is the words match the action at the end of the day? And I think we're all sometimes a little out of alignment there. And so just to have some help is really what we've been doing.
I love that. And I read that in your book too about we're just figuring this out. You referenced that about a story with your daughter. Like, I'm just figuring out this dad thing. I've never done this before. And I think that is the reality. We are all figuring life out as we go. And I'm not sure that any of us have it more figured out than anyone else. And just when you maybe think you've got it figured out, something's going to throw you a curveball and you're going to be back to like, nope, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, there's a thing I put in the book called the availability bias, which is like, things, you don't know things, And then there's a third category of what you don't know, you don't know. And I will announce something if you're open to it. A little drum roll here, please.
Sure.
This is the first time I've announced
Yes.
this publicly. But I've had this idea, and this happens after the last couple books I've written. I get the idea immediately after the books are done, like what the next couple might look like. And so the next one in my mind is They Said.
I'll read that one.
I've got a little like secret society. I've like studied a lot of history. I'm a big Graham Hancock fan, about where we all come from, about the pyramids, and then running all the way up through the CIA and all the things that we probably have just found out about JFK, RFK, and MLK. And again, it's not all bad. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not saying flip the table. And at the same time, it's like the things that don't change in history, it's the nature of humans. So it's power, it's corruption, it's greed, it's all those things. And so I think there are theys. I do. I think that we don't have to go to the Illuminati and that there's these puppet masters, but make no mistake, I've worked in big pharma, big food, and in government. And I will kindly tell you that there are people with incentives to make money, not lose their place in line, and to not have our best interests at heart. And that doesn't make them evil, but it should, like we're taking dyes out of food right now, like just remind us that not everything is been like certified as absolutely amazing for us. And I know you and I have talked about this relative to just schools. Like, this isn't
Yeah.
that we don't love teachers. This isn't that we don't respect and honor what teachers sacrifice and give. But for a second, memorizing facts is probably not, or teaching to the test is not necessarily the best experience for our kids. And so, again, this is just my version of it. And I think everyone's got to figure this out for them. But I do think getting the boogeyman out of what they represents is probably not a bad thing, because I think we do have this nefarious, and again, it's part of the bias in our head. We have a negative bias, which just means that, like, back in the day when we were going from tree to tree, when we spotted danger, it kept us alive. So when it bleeds, it leads. It's not just because we love chaos, it's because it kept us alive. It's encoded into our DNA to stay away from things that look different. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't think better of ourselves and be more graceful with each other and find the better angels of our nature. But I also think it's okay to just remind ourselves that, like, we're still warring with each other. Like, it's still okay here to drop bombs, to kill each other in the name of things. Like, violence is still very much part of our culture. So we can claim to be all this evolved, better than the past and all these things. But until we stop killing each other over really dumb things, I think I'm not totally sold yet that we're this evolved, species just yet.
Yeah, we have a long way to go, I
Yeah.
think.
And we've come a long way. Like, again,
Yep.
many things can be true. Like, for people who are like, it's never been worse, it's like, not true. It has been much worse 10 years ago. We have a long way to go and we're never going to get there. Don't believe that either. I think, look, we have figured it out. It does not mean we won't screw this up. But, look, the crosshairs for me has always been, the diatribe here just for one more second, is time. People want their time back. So why are we grumpy? Because we're doing the things we don't want to do. It's the drudgery. It's the energy vampires. It's the I have to work to survive. It's the American dream doesn't feel attainable for most of us in some shape or form. It's that things don't feel fair, because they're not. Are they more fair than they've been? Probably. Said by a guy who looks like me, but I think it's okay for me to have a point of view too, right? And so I think, like, I was talking to someone last night about this. It's like, we never had this many friends before. How many people on Facebook, check out this podcast? How many people, check out what you're doing on LinkedIn or Instagram? We ran into about 17 to 20 people a day, not hundreds to thousands. I mean, we are every color of the spectrum. So it's maybe not worse. You're just seeing the crazy or the amazing or all of the things in between that you didn't want to see back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when we had 3 channels. So, we should maybe just try to think about and reflect on that too. That's all.
Yeah. I think our ability to connect with people everywhere, like just in the last 2 days, I've connected with a friend in Mexico, my team, which is scattered all over, another friend in the US, a walk with somebody locally. It's easy to connect, but it also means that we're inundated with a lot of information, and it can be really hard to take all of that in. For me, I'm very sensitive to energy and news and all the things happening in the world. So my favorite book, and I'm going to swear on my own podcast, but it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And to me, that book, like, I love that book. Oh my gosh, what I wouldn't do to have a sit down with Mark. It totally resonated with me so deeply because I realized, like, oh,
Yeah.
this is why I'm so impacted as an empath by so many of the things happening in my own life, but also just globally,
Yeah.
energetically in the world. And you mentioned energy vampires, and I've learned to identify those people.
Right.
And again, still always learning and trying to figure out, how do I take in what is necessary? And we also have our own biases, right? We're confirmation bias. We listen to the same news channel. We connect with the same people. We unsubscribe. We cancel people we disagree with because we don't agree. But at the same time, well, maybe it's actually questioning what makes them believe this. That is something maybe totally different than me. What if we actually tried to put ourselves in their shoes and understand things from a different perspective instead of just canceling everybody when we don't agree and unsubscribing or unfollowing?
Look, it's like we're immature teenagers canceling each other, unfriending each other as adults. And again, I say this with like, I hope this is okay. I've been listening to Bill Maher since I was 16 years old. Okay. I like a lot of what he says. I
Yeah.
don't like a lot of what he says.
Yeah.
And I still am able to sort of process my own point of view, but I really do appreciate his attempt to call balls and strikes. Recently, he had a dinner with the current president, and everyone is out of their mind about it. And not everyone, a group of some people feel this way, and some people feel that way. And look, it doesn't matter who and how you feel about this. I think what you just said is so beautiful, which is we should just try to stay in a conversation directly, not have intermediaries, not have it distorted through a filter by others. And he came back and he said, look, he's not who I thought he was, and I still don't agree with anything he's doing. But that, I think, is the essence of how we start this, which is like, oh, and it doesn't mean he didn't get snowed in a meeting, or it doesn't mean that, again, everything everyone is talking about, you have to find 100% agreement with. I think that's part of the issue of like, you and I were talking about our marriages coming into this, and we both
Yeah.
have a high degree of privilege, honor, respect, reverence, appreciation, gratitude, the whole thing for it. But my wife and I don't agree on everything, and she's my favorite version of God. Okay, she's my favorite person on the planet. 8 billion people, she's number one. But it's okay that we're working things out still. And so I think like part of what you say is like we've just exposed ourselves to so much so fast. I think over the last 25 years, it's just we're catching it's like we need to defrag the computer a bit. And we need to just try to, I think, back to what he said, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. You only have so many fucks to give. And so I think I might have said this at the talk that you came to, which is like, so pick your cause, pick your fight, be supportive, run your play, live your life the way you want to. And as you're pointing the finger out, just remember that kids made this. So none of us are clean here. And we can keep going with that. It doesn't mean feel bad and shamey per se, but just realize that none of us got here in a clean way. And it doesn't mean that there's not versions of bad. No, there's versions of bad. But it's like, I think the worst holiday we celebrate in this country is Thanksgiving. It's like, we all know what happened. We all
Yeah.
know what happened. So again, I wasn't there. We need to wrap here. But Trevor Noah had this amazing, his last comedy special. I'm such a fan of his takes on things. And he said when he was traveling back to Germany, he noticed all of these exhibits and statues for the Holocaust. And he said what he really appreciated about the nuance in Germany is when they teach kids about the Holocaust. So one, they teach them about history. So for all, just to be clear, we should talk about history. Remember, history is told typically from the side who wins. There are other versions. Like we didn't hear about Juneteenth until recently because we didn't hear that version inside of it. So just as a one fun fact. But the second thing
Yeah.
he said that they do that I think is remarkable and I think would go a long way, which is they teach them that it's not their fault that it happened, but it is their responsibility. Now they know that it never happens again.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful distinction from my point of view, which is I can't change what happened. in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and frankly, even in my past. But I can try to make sure that whatever happens moving forward on our watch goes hopefully in a positive direction. And I think that's an interesting unified message, one I could definitely get behind if he ever decided to run.
I love that perspective. And I think we have to teach history. We have to learn from that past. We can't change the past, but perhaps by having these conversations and helping future generations not feel responsible for the past, but responsible for what happens next, that maybe we reduce or get rid of the generational trauma that we carry on
Yes.
through generations.
Look, guilt and shame are great tools. They made me wear clothes today because I didn't want to be all weird about not being like,
Thank you for wearing
right?
clothes.
Like, I mean, like guilt and shame aren't always bad when I can do things about them or when I can reflect and learn or when it can be a teaching moment. But again, to imagine there are versions of bad, just to be clear. And I still think that there's room for all of us. And I think that's not what we're hearing from any side, from any party, from any faction, from any leader for the most part. And I think coming all the way back to what I wrote about and Who Says, if you can give people the experience of choice throughout the day, where they find flow, where they get into things, where they end the day. We did a survey during the pandemic. 65,000 employees took the survey. And I was trying to take a picture of history. While you flip the table on work, people are now working from their homes for the most part, not everyone, but for the most part. And one of the things that came up out of that survey was that we're all asking the same question at the end of the day, which is, was today worth my life? Versions of that. And if it's not a yes, you're going to go home less of a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, a brother, a sister, a citizen, a friend, versus if you go home at the end of the day and go, huh, boy, was my cup filled. Boy, do I feel like today helped me become more of a better version of myself. It was hard. It was trying. It was stressful. It was the biggest challenge of my life today. But it's funny when you ask people at the end of their life, like, what were the defining moments of their lives? It tends to be the ones where they almost didn't make it, the big crisis of their lives. And to your very point about learning, like, we have to teach people that adversity is actually something that's good for us. It helps us see who we are. It helps us see who has our back. And look, at the end of the day, it helps us see that we're capable of the unthinkable. Truly.
Yeah, we are capable of so much more. And this idea of choice, I hope one day you get to hear my keynote called A Life Worth Dying For, because I think you will like it. Because everything you just said, I asked the question like, you're trading today to be here with me, and I'm trading today to be here with you. Is it worth it? Is how you're spending your day. If every day you're trading a day of your life for whatever you're doing, who you're spending it with, is it worth it? And now you have a choice. If it's not, what are you going to do to change it? Right? We can't always control the things that happen to us in our lives. I know you've had challenging upbringings and experiences playing football and injuries. I survived a near fatal car accident. My life could have gone a very different path, but I chose a different way. And that choice has led me to everything I've done in my life since. And it has helped me to get clear on what I desire out of my life, how I want to live. And I have 8 words that I live my life by. And it is foundational that every day, maybe I'm not going to live all 8 of those, but I know that those words help me make decisions. The choices in my life are easier. It doesn't mean what that leads to is going to be easy.
Right.
But the decision becomes easy because I know that aligns with who I want to be, how I want to be remembered in my life, and the impact that I want to have on my kids and the people I work with and touch, whether I'm speaking or through this podcast or the stories that my kids and my grandkids will tell about me someday. I think it's so important that we're here for a short time and we get to live our life for us, our way, not following the status quo and doing things just because we're told to do them.
Beautiful. What are those 8 words?
Okay. Adventure, love, connection, creativity, vitality, wealth, and fun.
Awesome. Beautiful.
And so every decision, it's like, oh, there's Fun isn't happening enough in my life. What do I need to do to inject more of that?
Right.
Adventure. I just got back from a trip to Papua New Guinea. I learned to scuba dive and was trekking through the wilds of Papua New Guinea and living with the tribe there. Adventure. Last night was date night, love
Right.
and connection. So it's those things, those words that drive everything that I do and the decisions I make in life and business.
That's wonderful. That's great.
And thanks for asking.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh, I had like many other questions that we didn't even get to. You just sold a business. And a lot of what I talk about on this podcast is founders who've sold their business and those business decisions. But to me, I feel like this was such an absolutely perfect conversation. So maybe we can have a part two and we can actually deep dive into that a little bit more. I think we have a lot more things we could talk about. But what I would love to, two things to wrap up is when you think about legacy, since this is called the Legacy Branding Podcast, what is the legacy that you're focusing on building, whether it's through your work as a father, a husband, a change maker? What is your legacy?
That's such a great question. Well, first, the pastor that I really enjoy listening to, Mark Batterson, has a line that legacy is not what you do, it's what you help others do. For me, I would have answered that question so differently in my early 20s to my 30s to now I'm 48. I think it was really important to me younger that I felt the survivor's guilt of making it out and I wanted to make a difference and a dent. And I felt like I had to pay it forward and pay it back. And that this lottery ticket and these blessings needed to be extraordinary. I needed to really like fix Baltimore or help every kid graduate from high school in Baltimore City or all of the different things. And I spent a lot of time doing board work and foundations and scholarships and money and time. And then at the beginning of the pandemic, we moved to Virginia and it just sort of happened. It unfolded. It was never on the bingo card. And I still love Baltimore and I still care about it. I still am very mission focused. Our business, our work that we do is with mission driven organizations. And I've always thought about our family as around legacy. But I really feel in this season of my life that it really is truly like home base. In legacy for me, again, is not counting the measures of lives or people or money or time per se, but it's more of like a feeling of, am I fighting for the things I care about and I stand for? Am I not forgetting where I come from? And at the same time, am I finding some quiet moments of peace where I can just appreciate how far we've all come, how far I've come. And look, when I'm gone, I have a love-hate relationship with books and trophies and the things that have our names on them. Because at the end of the day, I really don't feel inside of me that those are the things that are important, except that I think would be great if we all left good examples. And so that's what I care about, is to how to be a good example for our kids, how to be a great partner to Erica, and ultimately how to honor my parents. I had three amazing parents. I'm living the life of their dreams. I just feel like if the least I can do is to widen our circle of concern, it's to send the elevator back down when I can, and to just try to think how to live a life that is worth it. That's the struggle and the tension. I want to spend time at the house, but I also know that I'm called to do things outside of the house now. I think the thing for me too, and I'll try to make this quick, is that the fight that I felt I was in for 25, 30 years in the community, in the trenches, shoulder to shoulder with people, and then at the organizational, institutional level. Part of what has happened to me over the last 5 years is to understand that I think it's also important to make sure that you're fighting the right fight. And I think we're told to fight a lot of good fights. And I think a lot of those are good fights. But I think like the more you dig into the root of these fights and the potential solutions for these fights, I think we'll start to see that these sides are the old divide and conquer. And until we sort of bring them together and really approach it this way, from plurality of thoughts, from an inclusion of the best that we can do, because we can't do it all. I think Mark Manson's totally right. We only have so much time and so many fucks to give. So just be minded that your fucks might not be my fucks. And we just got to decide that I support your fucks, but I might not be able to join the fight in the same way that you might not be able to join my fight. But it doesn't mean we can't root each other on. And it doesn't mean that we can't be helpful still. How's that?
Perfect. I think we got enough fucks in this interview. So what a perfect way to wrap it up.
You started
No,
it.
I
I just
mean,
want to make sure.
I know. I love it. I mean, I have no trouble with an F-bomb, and sometimes you need it. I
Come
think,
on. I mean, we let the kids curse in the house. We always have. It's like, again, you pick your way to run your play, but of all the fucks we can give about being good parents, what words are just, they're words. Be kind. That is a hard line. But
yeah, that is exactly. We have that rule. It's like you're going to use these words when you drop something on your foot,
yeah.
but don't tell me that word. Don't yell that at me. It's about kindness. Absolutely. Joe, I think we are so aligned in so many ways. I think we could talk for hours. So we're going to do a part 2 and dive into some more things. But I would love for you to share, how can people connect with you? Where's the best way for them to do that?
That's a great question. I would just say I publish a lot of things on LinkedIn. I write a lot, almost once a week. Just some thoughts, or you can go to X, just look up Joe Mechlinski. Be careful when you go to X, you're going to see a little more raw thoughts about how I feel about people talking about things right now. But of course, I have a website, joemechlinski.com. You can go check things out. I do my best to try to wear a bunch of different hats as I'm advising or speaking or building AI in this new world order. And so, yeah, I think go check out the book, Who Says? And if you are kind enough and it earned the right, write an honest review would be helpful. That's probably the most important thing at this point in the game. So
absolutely. We'll make sure to add all of those links. And I'm looking at my copy. I need to get it signed by you. So next time I know I'm going to be seeing you, I'm bringing that to get you to sign it for me. Thank you so much, Joe. This has been such an amazing conversation. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning into the Legacy Branding Podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired and empowered you on your journey to building a brand that truly matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders who you think would benefit from listening. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your legacy brand, visit our website, labcreative.ca, to learn more and book a call. Don't forget to join us next time for more conversations that will help you navigate your transition and create your legacy. Until then, I'm Laura Beauperlant.